Hi there. This is a video on how to make a table. The whole point of the modernist project thing was that with industrial techniques you can have good, well-designed stuff that's available to the masses quite cheap. But obviously, as you know, lots of designer furniture, Eames stuff has become ridiculously expensive. But the handy thing about modernism is that it tends to have very simple shapes, which means that it's very easy to make good modernist stuff yourself. And so what I'm sitting on now, this is the table that I've made. I'll just get over here so you can see it a bit better. So this is the table that I've made, and I've made that for about £55. And the thing is, I've made it using all standard components. These are brackets you get from the normal hardware shop. This is ply, this is timber studding, there's a bit of hardboard in this gap here, and this is another bit of 12mm ply on the top. And so this is a video on how to make it. The whole point isn't to do an authentic name collector thing like Thornay or Eames or something like that. The whole point is I've made this so that any second-rate carpenter without any particularly brilliant skills can make it themselves using just standard materials available from any hardware shop. You don't need any particularly fancy tools. The fanciest tool you're going to need is a jigsaw. Apart from that, I made the whole thing using a saw, a drill, pliers, junior hacksaw, stuff like that. And so I made it for about £55, something like that. And so if you need a table, then this is a video on how to make one. Okay, I'm going to try and make a table now. And so to do that, first of all, I'm going to chop up these bits of wood into table legs. Okay, I'm going to chop these bits of wood 72 centimetres long. They're not going to end up 72 centimetres, but I'm just going to do that just to get them to a manageable length so I can start. Okay, I've got my 4 bits of wood. They're 90mm from that side to that side by 38mm from that side to that side. But whatever shop you go to, they'll have their own different things. I could have used 100mm joist, which would be like about 90 something mil by about 50, something like that. But you know, but as long as it's about 2 inches by 4 inches, or a bit less or a bit more, depends on where you are in the world or what your timber supplier sort of does, but something about that size. Okay, there's my first leg that's been cut there. You see the way it tapers? If I get this other leg and put it here and put this one over the top, you see that it tapers at the top all the way down to the bottom. You see that I'm not being sort of super confident about this because I've never done this one sort of thing before, so I'm sort of just feeling my way along. But I'm now going to see how the brackets work on this leg before cutting the rest out. Okay, now the crucial thing with any table is how the leg locates to the deck, and what I'm doing, I just want to use normal bits that you can get from any hardware shop. So I'm just using standard brackets. They're heavy duty brackets, they're 120mm each. It would be nice maybe to get something a bit bigger, but I'm going to use 3 of them in this sort of arrangement to make a shoe. I was for a while thinking about using a joist hanger to do it, but instead I'm going to do a shoe. Oh, got it the wrong way around. Here. That flat side is going to go up to that one, and they're going to bolt through. So that's how I'm going to make a shoe that's going to be screwed to the deck. And how the leg connects to the deck is a crucial thing of any table, because each leg is a cantilever essentially, so the moment on it is huge. So I will now suss out how I'm going to drill this. Okay, I've done my holes that I need. I've drawn where they're going to be. What I did was I put the leg on a solid surface, put the angle up to it, and that gave me that. Where I marked a hole there, and then I put the angle there, offered it up, and that gave me the other hole. Okay. Also, I've got to really be careful that I drill these holes absolutely straight, because I haven't got a pillar drill. I want to do it all with hand tools, and if I get this not square, the whole leg is going to be at a funny angle, and it might be noticeable. Okay, I'm doing this with hand tools. I've just drilled that hole there, and I was just hoping as I did it that when it came out the other end it would be centre, and sure enough, check that out, the dude too rude. Anyway, wicked. Right, I'm going to see how the brackets look. Okay, I'm sort of making this up as I go along. So there are the brackets bolted to the leg. So the leg tapers that way. And I'm going to sort of see how I feel about that. I think it feels strong enough. And obviously later on I'm going to saw off the waist on the bolt and use a dome-headed bolt there. Okay, well now to cut the other legs out. So I'm going to use this first one that I'm happy with as a jig. And so I'm going to, instead of measuring it all out again where I could make a mistake with the tape measure, I'm going to take the one that I know that's right, overlay it on top of the other one and draw a line around it so I know that the other ones are going to be exactly the same shape. So anyway, I'm looking at this bit of wood here and there's a knot there, a knot there and a knot there right on the edge, and that could affect the strength. And so when I overlay it, I'm going to overlay it that way, so that knot that could cause me problems later on is going to be in the waist. Okay, so now I'm going to draw a line around that and chop it out, and I'm going to do the same with the other three legs as well. Okay, well there they are all marked out, so now half an hour of sewing. Just a quick note on accuracy when cutting. When I set this out and draw these lines, you don't just draw a line and cut along it. I draw the line and then with the saw I line up, and so the bit that I cut away is going to be about 1.5 millimeters wide, the cut of the saw, and the line, I'm going to make sure that the line is always to the left hand side of the saw. So I don't just cut along the line, I cut the slot so that the line that I've drawn is to the left hand side of the slot and the slot touches on it. So the bit of wood that I'm left over with is exactly the thing that I've scribed out. You don't just draw a line and approximately cut along it, or else it will all look pissed basically. Okay, that's how accurate it needs to be. Oh, I made a schoolboy error on the last one. This is the thing with carpentry. I'm going to cut off this and this. And the last ever saw you do when you saw through always nibs the wood a bit and spoils it. So if I chop off this one, then the last bit that goes a bit crap, it doesn't matter because I'm going to be cutting this bit off anyway. So that's a little trick to learn. But with carpentry, the only way to learn is to do it, because there's a million little tricks about how you hold the wood and stuff like that. You can go on forever, but basically the only way to learn is to do it. But okay, fine, next. Okay, I've got to do a bit of sanding now, just for the record, so you know. This sort of sander, I think, is always better than one of these. One of these sanders, you have to buy special sandpaper in triangles with Velcro on the back, so it's much more expensive. For these ones, you can just get a normal bit of A4 sandpaper, chop it into 3, and then and so you get tons more sandpapering for your money from one of these ones than one of those ones. So I'd always go for that one if in doubt. Okay, that's the 4 legs done, and I've just brought the brackets through just to see approximately what it looks like. But they're 4 legs and they seem sturdy-ish. See how they go when they're bolted onto the deck. Okay, there's the deck. That's a bit of 8x4 18mm thick spruce ply. Obviously it's spruce because we don't want to hurt the rainforest, so no mahogany or anything like that. Now what I'm going to do is I want to make this table so it's perfectly symmetrical both ways, so we can flip the deck around. Yeah, that'll all make sense later on, but that means I've got to do a cross. I've got to do a cross in the middle and set everything not only from the sides but from the centre of the cross. And so what I'm going to do is, I can see that bit of timber is 48 inches wide, so I'm going to measure 24 from one side and then 24 from the other, and that will give me 2 lines very close together in the middle all the way down, and then I know the centre line will be in between those two. I'm going to do that both ways to get the to get the cross in the middle. It's just so that I can be absolutely sure. Okay, I'll draw that now. Okay, I've drawn a cross in the middle of this. You probably won't be able to see it from here, but from there to there I've measured like 24 inches, then from there to there I've measured 24 inches. Both times I've drawn a line. Then from there to there I've measured 48 inches, drawn a line. Then from there to there I measured 48 inches and drawn a line. And now that will tell me the true exact centre. You see, it looks like one line, but it's not, it's 2. In between those 2 lines is the centre one way, and in between those 2 lines is the centre another way. That way it means you get total accuracy. If your tape measure's a bit wrong, it doesn't matter. Okay, cheers. Okay, so I know where the centre of the table is, and I want the space between these 2 legs to be wide enough so that I can fit 2 chairs in. So I want the space between that leg and that leg to be 136 centimetres, which is 1360 millimetres. And I want the space between that leg and that leg to be 50 centimetres. Right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it out from the centre line of the table in each direction, so I know I've got the space. So I'm putting the legs around the space where people are going to be. Okay, that's why I'm doing it this way. I'm just sort of feeling my way along as I do it. Okay, so I've got 4 of these crosses that I've marked out. One there, one in that corner, and one there in that corner. You see, now those crosses represent the furthest in that the table leg can be, because I don't want people to hit their legs on it. We've got to do a table that we're going to fit into that space, and I could have a bigger table, but I don't want something so huge it's going to take over the world. And so basically I've measured enough space for one chair to fit there, one chair to fit there, one chair to fit there, there, and there. And so those points, which are there, and there, represent the most innermost point of where the table leg is going to be. Okay, I've measured out all the holes and I've drilled them, and I've measured them by, well, here's the bolts sticking through. I'm going to put them all the way through now and put the brackets on the other side. I'll explain all this in just a second. Okay, well, you see I've put the brackets on to hold the legs, and what I've done is I double checked how square it is by doing my double lines there and double lines there, and sure enough this bit of ply is perfectly square, and I dimensioned from that screw to the edge and from that screw to the edge, and I made sure all the rest were the same. So that side is a mirror image of that side, and that side is a mirror image of that side. It's all perfectly symmetrical in both axes. And then what I did was that I spaced it so that that leg and that leg are 500 apart, and that leg and that leg are 136 centimetres apart, so that 2 people can comfortably sit side by side there, 2 people comfortably can sit side by side there, and people can sit at the end without hitting their legs on the legs, sort of thing. And so I reckon that's all good. If anything breaks, it's all made from standard parts, so if I want to do a leg again, I can just, if something goes wrong with a leg, I can just make another one from a standard bit of wood that you get from any hardware shop. Okay, so this is all made with standard components. They're all just normal M6 nuts and bolts. You see there's that one that I've sawn off already. I'm going to saw them all off and use sort of nice dome-headed nuts like that in the end. But anyway, right, okay, so now I've done all my tricky bit of drilling. Now I'm going to cut off all of the edges of the plywood, because lots of it we don't actually need. We don't need this huge Goliath table that's going to dominate the room. So I'm going to cut off the extraneous bits of wood and see what we've got left. Oh, also, you see that black line there and that black line there, they're the lines where I marked out the minimum space that I'd want to have the legs apart. And so you see I've got similar black lines there and there. And so that's how I did it. Those lines are 500 apart there, and there's a line there and there that are 1360 millimeters apart. So I worked out how much space people's legs would need, and then I put the legs around that. So I built it around the space that the people would need to sit down. That's it. And you see I gave it a bit of an angle here, just because it looks nicer. And then once I did that, and also because it makes it stronger, because if the legs are just square, then it's very easy to push one end of the table and it creaks. Okay, so what I did was, once I got one leg in the perfect position and I knew it was all properly set out, I measured from that hole to the edge, that hole to the edge, that hole each way, and I set out all of the other holes exactly the same, so that in order to keep it perfectly symmetrical. Okay, I've chopped the 2 ends off, which is why it's so much shorter now. I wanted to make sure that these bolts have about 50 mil of meat to sort of, so they're not too close to the edge of the wood. So basically I just put this spivet level, could be any parallel bit of wood next to it, use that to draw a line. So that's the line I'm going to cut off, and I'm going to cut off all of the extraneous stuff around the side until we've just got the basic deck in the middle. Then there's going to be another thinner deck that's going to go on top, just to conceal all these sort of fixings and stuff like that. But okay, right, I'm going to carry on cutting off the corners now. Okay, I've chopped the excess off with the panel saw, And so right now it's like the deck is just an octagon, but there's going to be another bit that goes on top that's going to be like a squashed hexagon. And so I've got it. It's suddenly gone from being too big to too small, but that doesn't matter because the top deck that goes on top is going to cantilever over, because then it's going to look really slim in profile. Okay, hope it's alright. One thing to remember, now that I've chopped off all the waste, all the edges from around the side, I don't have true edges around the side anymore. So if I'm going to do any measurements or dimensions, I shouldn't take them from the side, but I should take them from those centre lines that I put in underneath. Right, because I know that's true, and I know these edges, although I cut them straight and everything, they're never totally to the millimetre accurate, because they're done by hand. Okay, I've sawed off all the tops of sawed off all the ends of the bolts, so now I can remove the nuts and put on dome-headed nuts, which will look a lot nicer. And I did all of these, there's 3, 9, all those and those. So that's 36 of them all in all. I did all that with junior hacksaw. If I can do it, so can you. Okay, I'm going to put another layer on top, a very thin layer of this here, this hardboard, because I don't want these to make indents in the top deck, because there's going to be a thin top deck that is on the top. I'm just making this up as I go along really. I'm not totally sure how I'm doing it. But so there's going to be a thin deck that goes on top, and this I'm going to cut it out, put on top, and it's basically going to be like a washer, a layer that's a washer that just stops the top deck having indents made on that. Okay, let's see how it goes. Okay, I've disassembled it, and so now it means I can overlay this on the other bits of wood to make sure that they perfectly line up. Okay, so this bracket that's going to be nearest to the corner of the table, I've drilled another hole just here. So you see, this is the new hole, these are the two holes that already existed. This hole is going to be for the bolt that's going to hold the top deck onto the bottom deck. So this is a structural deck, and that's the deck that we're actually going to use and sort of put plates on. Now what I've done is, here are the two bits of wood, these are the two decks, and you see I've drawn two lines here. Each line is I think 24 inches from each edge. So I know the centre line of this bit of wood is in between those two lines, and so when I put this deck on top, and this, you see there's a square here, or rather a cross down the middle of this thing. I put this bit of wood on top of the other bit of wood, and I can look directly above and see that that exactly lines up. And I can go to the next one and see that that also absolutely lines up, and that's a way of making sure that this bit of wood is exactly in the centre of that bit of wood. Okay, I've now drilled my 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 holes. This is a top sheet, and by lining it up and using the other deck as a jig, I've got them 4 exactly right. Okay, I've put this hardboard sheet on top now. It's basically just like one big washer. You see, I've cut holes so that when I clamp the top bit onto it and screw it to compress it, that these bolt heads won't make indentations in the top deck. Okay, so that's just a bit of hardboard. I put a big sheet of 8x4 hardboard on top of this thick deck, the one underneath, the structural one, the 18mm ply, and then I drew a line around it, and then I drew a line the thickness of the level just to bring it in a bit, because no one's ever going to see this, so it's just set in. Hopefully it'll make a nice little shadow gap running all the way around, but I don't really know how it's going to work. Let's see. Okay, now additional holes have been drilled here and here and there and there, and basically the location of these will depend on what sort of brackets you use. We see underneath there's 4 holes in these particular brackets. I bought 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've put that hole so that we can clamp the decks together, bolt into this one, because I want to use the brackets for several things, so I'm not just using one element for one job. And so that is the place where I thought it would annoy people the least to have some sort of dome-headed bolt there And so that is where the dam-headed bolt for the top is going to go in. Okay, let's see how this works out. Okay, I'm working out this thing as I go along. I've put it on, bolted it on symmetrically, totally, and tomorrow I'm going to cut out the hexagon shape of the top deck. Got to make it the prettiest shape I can, and obviously you can make it whatever shape you like, but I'm going to make it a squashed hexagon like a hand sharoon classroom, because that is axial and communal simultaneously. Cheers. Okay, I'm ready to start cutting the top bit to the correct shape now. Now that I've done this, I sort of know how I'd do it better if I was going to do it a second time. If I was going to do this again, I'd get the 3 bits of wood, the bottom 18mm ply, the 3mm hardboard, and the top nice bit of ply that's just 12mm. I would have put them all together from the beginning, sandwiched them and joined them then, because I've done so much work disassembling it and reassembling it to make sure all the holes lined up and make sure everything's correct now. Right, these aren't going to be the finished things. I'm just putting them there just to hold it for the time being. I now know that I'm going to chop off. If we look at the edge of it here, I want to chop it off so that this structure bit underneath that's basically doing all the structural work gets concealed a bit by this top bit overhanging, and so I'm going to chop off the end 28 centimeters there. And what I've done is I've taken lots and lots of 28 centimeter marks from the edge. There's one, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. I do lots all the way along, because if I'm not holding the tape measure perfectly straight, one could throw all the other, could throw the line out. But if I do lots, then I might get one wrong, but the chances are I won't get enough wrong that it could make a serious difference. So I've made about 10 different marks of the same 28 centimeters all the way along there. I'm going to join that up with my spirit level, and I'm going to mark it all out on both sides before chopping it down. I'm going to chop it down, I think, with a panel saw, just because I feel more comfortable with that than a jigsaw. Okay, I'm just cutting the top deck to shape, just by cutting off the bits around the edge that I don't need. Okay, more to follow. Okay, well that's it cut to the right shape. I'm still not sure if I want to radius the corners, but I think we seem to have a sort of angle thing going on rather than a radius thing going on, so I probably won't round off the corners. I'm still in two minds about that. It's a shame that when you look at this up close you can still see a bit of the deck underneath like that, because I wanted this to sort of cantilever over so it looked really sort of fine. And that's generally what you get, but you just do that a little bit, you get that little bit sort of protruding just there and just there. But now I've just got to disassemble it and varnish it and stuff like that. Okay, but yeah. Okay, and here is a you've been framed moment. Let's just see if it's sort of strong enough. And here I am. Yeah. Oh, it supports me, so it should support the cooking. Okay, well, we're going to have a kid running around soon, so the wife said best to have the corners rounded off. I'm just going to varnish the top now. You will have noticed that reluctantly I bought, this is the hardwood ply, so this is the Brazilian ply that I bought. I felt a bit bad doing it because it comes from Brazil, and I don't really believe it when they say it's from FSC, Sustainably Managed Forests, but this wood doesn't have any knots in, so it looks a lot nicer. It is going to be more durable, and I sort of manages to comfort myself by thinking that with this, if one side gets bad, we can flip it over and use the other side because it's all totally reusable. So at least I'm getting 2 lots of wear out of 1 lot of bit of wood sort of thing. So I felt bad about that, but at least I'm using every single bit of the wood because I'm going to use all the offcuts as well. I did the curves just by getting the record, or you could use a plate or saucer or anything, and putting that up to the edge, drawing a line round with a pencil and then doing it with the jigsaw, and that's sort of how I did the ones on the corners. Just any curve thing will do. Okay, I've rounded off these corners here, 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 here. I've rounded them off because when you're lower and you can see that deck underneath the top deck over there, it just looked funny when these corners were pointy and those were all rounded off, so I've rounded them off. Right, so I'm going to leave the deck on the top that way round so that the top surface can get really marked and stained and worn, because I like things to look weathered. And so I'm going to leave that side to get marked and get lots of cup rings on and stuff like that, because I quite like that thing as something ages. But obviously, because it's perfectly symmetrical, if one day when the Queen comes to visit, we could just flip it over and there's a good side underneath, so I can have a good side and a bad side for the table deck. And if ever a leg breaks, no problem, I can just saw another one. It's all completely surfaceable. You don't need any skills or anything to always keep it exactly how you want it. Okay, I've taken it all apart. There's the lower panel that I've painted white, and the legs there on the floor, and there's the top panel. And so that I've just put loads of Osmo varnish on, and that I'm painting white, and those legs I'm painting white, because I realised now they're all 3 different types of wood, and it was just going to be a mishmash of different wood colours. So once all that paint has dried, then I can bolt it all back together and see how it looks. Okay, I gave them all another coat of paint and varnish before I went to bed last night. Let's bolt it all together and see how it looks. Okay, I've bolted it all together. It seems okay. Now it's painted white. That looks pretty good under there. For the radius corners. I think I've so under-engineered it. It maybe looks more delicate than what it is. But I mean, it's the first one. Oh yeah, also the reason why I did this is because I was in a junk shop on Saturday, and there was a chair that I thought was a Thonne chair, but I wasn't sure. And so I scrolled all through Google image search to find out if it was an authentic Thonne chair. And I thought, well, this is bollocks really. What I want to do is, if with this video, it means that instead of being obsessive about names and is something authentic and stuff like that, I've deliberately designed and made this to be forged. So the whole point is that an authentic, genuine one of these is one not that I've made, but which you've made, because the whole point of making this video is just so that anyone can have a nice table cheap and learn a little bit about carpentry while they're doing it. And so I hope that makes a bit of sense, but furniture manufacturers might curse me for doing it, but that's why I've done it, just so that people can learn a bit about carpentry and have a nice table for cheap. Cheers, thanks, bye.